appeasing terrorists, concession after concession after concession. The same team that's around Biden was around Obama, that did Benghazi, that did the Bergdahl trade, that recklessly pulled us out of Iraq, that led to the ISIS caliphate and attacks around the world, including inspired attacks here in the homeland, that led to the Iran deal. And they're exercising that same playbook. You cannot appease terrorists. They understand strength, and they understand leverage, and they understand military might. And we're showing none of that right now.
The man you just heard from is quoting from the neoconservative playbook. And when you think of neoconservatives and how unpopular they are, it is curious that Donald Trump has chosen that guy, Republican Congressman Mike Waltz, as his national security advisor. Disastrous choice. Now, Representative Waltz is the definition of a war hawk. Just listening to what he said in that video makes it pretty clear. And it is much to the chagrin of all of the America First Republican voters who thought that Trump would be the pro-peace president that they were longing for. Now, just to give you a little taste of who this guy is, taste is an uncomfortable word to use in this context, but nonetheless, he is a retired Army Green Beret who served in the Middle East and Africa. So far, so good, nothing wrong with that. But he also served as former Vice President Dick Cheney's counterterrorism advisor.
Ding, ding, ding. Oh, what happened? Oh, the Cheneys are terrible. I can't believe Kamala Harris is hanging out with the Cheneys. The right wing said that? We said that. Apparently only one of us meant it. Okay, so now all of a sudden Trump brings in the Cheney staffers. I'm going to tell you why he's bringing all these guys in. And there's going to be a giant clash between Israel first and America first in this next 4 years. And it's going to be super interesting. And I don't think anybody has any idea which way that collision comes out.
Look, I'm really rooting for the America First crowd, and I'm not kidding. I really mean that. Much to the chagrin of some portion of the audience, I don't care. But they are right when it comes to what they desire in regard to foreign policy. And you're right about that potential clash. So let me give you some more information on Congressman Waltz, who is going to be the national security advisor to Donald Trump. He was also a defense policy director for Defense Secretaries Donald Rumsfeld and Robert Gates. He voted against ending US support for the Saudi-led coalition in Yemen. To be fair, Donald Trump vetoed a bipartisan resolution to pull the United States out of that war. So I don't think that that would necessarily bother Donald Trump. And he also voted for keeping the Iraq war authorization on the books in 2021. Okay. He's best known for being a massive hawk when it comes to China. He's a member of the House's China Task Force and has argued that the United States is underprepared if there is a military conflict in the region. Maybe we should do what it takes to avoid military conflict in the region, but something tells me that he's thirsty as hell for one.
Oh yeah, well, the person who tells you that is Mike Waltz. He says it all the time. So there's so much more on this and the other picks, but I really want to show that Afghanistan clip because that clip shows you exactly where his head is at. And if you're skeptical of us, oh, you guys are left wingers, etc. No, Trump's going to be anti-war. This is the guy he picked for his national security advisor. Watch this.
Until you're prepared to commit your grandchildren, not your children, but your grandchildren to stand shoulder to shoulder with my grandchildren and fight Islamic extremism, then you will never be successful here. So are we 15 years in? Yes. Are we in for a lot more fighting? And do we need a long-term strategy to undermine the ideology of Islamic extremism, just like we did fascism and just like we did communism? Yes, we do. And Gordon, I think we're in for a long haul, and I think our nation's leadership needs to begin telling the American people, I'm sorry, we don't have a choice. We are 15 years into what is going to be a multi-generational war because we're talking about defeating an idea. It's easy to bomb a tank, very difficult to defeat an idea, and that's exactly what we have to do.
So guys, a multi-generational war, that was 15 years into Afghanistan. He said, forget 15 years. I need your children serving in this war. I need your grandchildren serving in this war. There's no one who is more pro-war, bigger war hawk, bigger neocon than Mike Waltz, the new national security advisor for Donald Trump, and you just saw it with your own eyes.
Yep.
So this guy is as bad as it gets. He can't wait to start a larger war. And think about how dumb he is too. Oh, this is an idea, so that's why we should be fighting a war where your kids get killed and we spend trillions of dollars to try to bomb an idea? What a moron.
Yeah, I mean, look, it is interesting because the person who got the ball rolling on the US withdrawal of Afghanistan was Donald Trump. So it is curious that Donald Trump is choosing this guy who has a thirst, a real passion to remain in Afghanistan as his national security advisor. That's insane. But he did have, some sharp criticisms toward Joe Biden for pulling the troops out. He said Waltz called on President Joe Biden to reverse course, relaunch military operations in the region, and crush the Taliban offensive by committing. Let me just stop. We were in Afghanistan for 20 years. And in those 20 years, did we crush the Taliban? Did we do that?
No, but we did crush our budget, which Mike Waltz and his corrupt buddies were super happy about, because all that money went straight to the military-industrial complex as we accomplished absolutely nothing.
Insane. So basically crushed the Taliban offensive by committing American air power supported by special forces. The Florida congressman warned darkly of an Al-Qaeda 3.0 and stated that no negotiation should take place with the Taliban until the situation is stabilized militarily. Like, this guy is a complete and utter joke when it comes to foreign policy. Waltz is the kind of guy who looks at the foreign policy failures of the United States and wants to double down on them.
No, it looks like he wants to quadruple down because he's enlisting your grandchildren in a permanent war. What happened to anti-war? Come on, Maga, what happened to anti-war? Okay, so now, but I know Anna and I are crazy, but we think there's a small percentage chance that Maga is actually going to get mad at this and is going to challenge Trump. Okay, so let me explain why this happened and what I think might happen next, okay? So this is Team Miriam. Miriam Adelson gave $137 million to Donald Trump for this campaign. Remember, her late husband gave him $200 million in the last 2 campaigns. So now we're well over $300 million. So what does she get in return? She gets potentially Secretary of State Marco Rubio, huge war hawk, Israel first. Says Israel shouldn't do a ceasefire, we should have more war, and he said America should pay for all of it, okay? Then you get Mike Waltz, who's also huge neocon, huge war hawk, of course, enormously pro-Israel, and said Israel should not only continue the war, but escalate the war against Iran so that we can get dragged into it.
Disaster.
Elise Stefanik, massively pro-war, neocon, totally team Israel, thinks that, and Mike Waltz agrees, that if you protest Israel in America, if you're an American citizen protesting Israel, you should be arrested. Okay, so this is Team Miriam, and notice they're first. Why? Because Trump already made this deal. He didn't have to think it through. He promised Miriam, okay, Miriam, thank you for the bribe. And so now I'll give you all the neocons you could possibly hope for. This deal was already cast in stone. That's why they're going first.
Break your promises, Trump. You already took the money. Break your promises. You're good at that. Do it, okay? America First is gonna love you. We're gonna come on this show, a lefty show, and give you credit. Break your promises to Miriam. Come on, be an American hero.
Yeah,
we believe in you.
Hey, do like Sheldon did. Screw Miriam.
Ew, okay.
No, seriously, guys. Okay, kidding aside, this is super important because not only is this about this enormously important issue of continuing the forever wars and honestly, Israel's forever wars.
Yeah.
I don't know what we were doing in Iraq. Iraq didn't attack us. At least Taliban was in Afghanistan, right? But Iraq had nothing to do with us. But Netanyahu demanded that we go into Iraq. That's a fact, you can go look it up, okay? So we fought that war for apparently a mix of reasons, but certainly Netanyahu wanted it. Right. He wants us to fight Iran, he wants us to pay for occupied territories, Lebanon, Syria, etc. You get it, right? So now, as Anna pointed out, there's one thing Donald Trump is terrific about, which is screwing over creditors.
Yeah.
Okay, so he always says like, oh, they're suckers, he gave me money. And it's smart business not to pay him back. That way I get to keep it, okay? So do likewise to Miriam Adelson and the Israel First crowd, because America First, look, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe we're totally wrong and naive. It's totally possible. MAGA, all the bro podcasters, et cetera, might go, no, Donald Trump said it. We are now his loyal servants.
That's not what I'm seeing online.
No, I'm not seeing it either. That's why we're more hopeful than anyone else. That's why we see things ahead of other people do. But they could go in the direction of, yes, sir, of course, sir. America's second, sir. Israel will be first. We will start any war they want and pay for all of it. Here's all of my money, sir. I beg you, Donald Trump, start every war, right? They could go in that direction because let's be honest, in the first term they did. Whatever Trump said, they were like, yes, sir, of course, sir. It doesn't matter that it violates our actual core principles, sir, right? But this time around, we're sensing something that almost no one else is sensing. We've been here before, and what will happen next is everyone will tell us that we're wrong, and then they'll say, oh, you guys are terrible, et cetera, et cetera. And a year to 2 years later, everybody will say, well, everybody knew that the MAGA was gonna turn on Trump and demand America first and not come back around and say, oh yeah, didn't the Young Turks say that several years ago? So look, I don't know it for a fact at all. I'm saying there's two different paths. But if you go to TV and you listen to mainstream media, they'll tell you there's no way in the world MAGA will do that. But what we're sensing is a whole bunch of right-wing populists online who are actually American first and who actually have loyalty to that idea and to the idea of anti-war more than they have loyalty to Donald J. Trump.
So look, I'm not naive, okay? So if I didn't have an example to latch onto, I would have no hope here. But I can't help but think about Trump's first term. Trump wanted to go to war with Iran. And the only thing that stopped him, to be quite honest with you, were his supporters. His supporters did not want a war with Iran. They made that abundantly clear. And Donald Trump called off an airstrike that he had ordered on Iran. Do you remember that? And so that to me was incredibly impressive because it was a recent example of an American president who actually listened to his base. So that's why I think there is some possibility that they will have some influence on him. And based on what I've been seeing online, the America First crowd within his base do not like his cabinet picks at all, okay? Marco Rubio is another one, we'll get to him in just a moment. But I never thought I would say that I'm hoping that America First saves this country from engaging in pointless wars abroad, but that's where we're at.
That's where we're at because mainstream media and the establishment Democrats and establishment Republicans love war. Any war, they go, oh, we have to do it. Israel had a right to defend itself. That's why we spent trillions attacking a random country.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we know that, guys. So now I want everybody in the audience, okay, especially if you're a right winger, okay? Now go look at mainstream media and see if anybody's pointing out Team Miriam and how the first three picks were all massively pro-Israel and pro-war. Then go look at right-wing media and see who's pointing out that his picks are all neocons, former Cheney staffers, et cetera, right? And by the way, now I think you will find some honest shows in right-wing media. And I haven't said that in 20 years, right? But you'll also find a lot of shows covering for Donald Trump and this agenda. And then you decide who's right and who's wrong.
Right. So just a few more details about Waltz, because last month he did suggest that Israel should have struck Iran's oil and nuclear facilities. In addition to that, even before the war in Gaza, Waltz said in May of 2023 that the United States should make clear it wouldn't stop Israel from striking Iran's nuclear program, and that the US should show Iran through a variety of means that our military capabilities are such that we could indeed severely damage their program. Look, it's one thing to egg on Israel in attacking Iran in this way, but understand that for neoconservatives like Waltz, the idea is for the United States to get involved in that war. It's not just about like, oh, I'm just gonna give Israel some advice and they should do X, Y, and Z with Iran and we stay out of it. No. He very much wants the US to be dragged into a war with Iran, which would be absolutely devastating. You think Iraq was a disaster? Iran's military capabilities are much more advanced than Iraq's were. And so we did not win that war in Iraq. The idea that we would go into Iran and it would work out all hunky-dory for us is a joke, okay? American troops will die. and they will die on behalf of Israel, and they will die on behalf of the private defense contractors who very likely have been bankrolling this politician.
Not only that, there's of course the oil companies who Donald Trump is very, very fond of, and their profits would soar if there was a war in the Middle East. Iran is 4 times larger than Iraq. It would lead to massive instability and enormous gas prices. And remember, their costs would barely change. It would all be billions in extra profits for the oil companies, for the defense contractors, and for the pro-Israel crowd. So look, guys, we're gonna find out. We're gonna find out. And I mean, if it turns out Maga saves us from Donald Trump, that would be hilarious and amazing and interesting. Again, I don't know that it's gonna happen. And so let's see how it goes. But right now, Trump is showing you his cards, and his cards are all pro-war.